The news again. The Trump administration is talking about it. The gun violence there is terrible. It's true. There are actually 13 cities in the country that have worse gun violence, but it doesn't make the Chicago situation any better. We all recognize that there's an issue. In fact, a recent report came out saying that one of the issues is that they are absolutely flooded by guns because of the nearby areas that have almost no regulation on guns. So it's very, very easy to acquire guns there, despite the nonsense right-wing talking point you hear from time to time about, oh, well, they don't allow guns in the city of Chicago, so, since they have tough regulation, I guess regulation doesn't work. Yeah, you could step 1 foot outside of Chicago or Illinois and have almost no regulation in nearby states. So it's a preposterous point, and that report shows it. So what does the Trump administration think is the problem? Well, they think, well, of course, first, law and order. We got to get tougher with these guys. Send in the cops. Send in some federal agencies and do some work in there, okay? Well, the problem with that approach is that the Justice Department already has a scathing report out about how unconstitutionally harsh the practices of the Chicago Police Department are. Whether it's in unlawful detentions, incredibly harsh treatment of prisoners and suspects, and not giving them their rights. So it's not like Chicago didn't try that. They've been trying it for a long, long time, and guess what? It hasn't worked. So that's not why I'm doing this video, though. All that stuff is fairly standard. The thing that really bothered me was what Sarah Huckabee Sanders said. Now, she's acting as the White House spokesperson while Sean Spicer is in hiding somewhere, a cave, in a bunker with Dick Cheney or wherever Sean Spicer is. Anyway, and she said this quote, which I'm going to argue is racist because it is. And then you might disagree, and that's okay. I probably won't be able to change your mind, but I did want to give you context. I want to explain it to you at least so you understand, okay? She said, I think that the problem there, referring to Chicago, is that it's a crime problem. Well, that part is true. Yeah, that's what we're trying to address. The question is why, right? She went on to say, I think crime is probably driven by morality more than anything else. So if you don't know the history of this, then you might think, well, I mean, I guess, yeah, sure, that's acceptable statement. Crime has to do with morality. If you rob someone, that's immoral, right? That's not that controversial statement. But the context of that is that it's a dog whistle. It's what conservatives have been saying about what they call urban areas. In other words, black areas, black cities with larger African-American populations. And they say that it's a cultural problem. A moral problem they say less often because it's more repugnant, to put it that way, but they do say it from time to time. So, and then you'll have the Bill O'Reillys who used to say on Fox News, which is a great sentence, who used to say on Fox News. Anyway, he would say, where are the fathers? Where are the fathers? This is a cultural problem. In other words, don't worry about the guns. Don't worry about that. America overall has an enormous gun violence problem, way worse than other societies in the same area and ballpark as we are, other developed countries, right? And that is true no matter where you are in America, urban America, rural America, it doesn't matter. But that's not how they frame it on the right. And here the Trump administration is saying that it's a moral problem. Now, it's really, again, if you know anything about this, it's not that nuanced. They're not trying to hide their racism very much. For example, do you ever hear them saying, the problem with Kansas is a moral problem? Now, there are a number of problems in Kansas right now. They're running a giant deficit. Their government's an absolute mess. Brownback destroyed it with over-the-top tax cuts, and even Republicans acknowledge what a mess it is. But nobody in the Republican Party goes around saying the people of Kansas have a moral problem. They don't say the people of Texas have a moral problem. They don't say any of that stuff because that's their voters, and they wouldn't want to, alienate them. But when it comes to black Americans, they willy-nilly, without a second thought, saying, well, you know what their problem is. They have a morality problem. Now, I don't want to get into the history of African Americans and right-wingers in this country, but one group did have a morality problem very, very significantly throughout the entire history of the United States, and it was not a subtle or small morality problem, and it wasn't African Americans. Okay, but now they turn around and say, you see that? if only we could fix the morality of the people, the kind of people who live in Chicago, we wouldn't have this issue. That is deeply abhorrent. Now, again, if you're a Trump supporter, you're never going to believe any claims of racism or dog whistle, or you're not going to want to look into history or context. That's not what you do. So this probably won't convince you. But it's my job to tell you the news. And for the rest of you, you know exactly what she's saying, and you know that for a fact they wouldn't say it about their own voters in Kansas. And when if that's how they treat and how they think of black Americans, it is really gross.